All right, we're going to go over some highlights of Diablo Cross here. Now this start I did pretty okay. I've been practicing my starts because the last couple races I didn't do so well on my starts, and that caused some problems for me in the long run of that race. And so I did okay here. The only big difference is between those races and this race is that there wasn't any pinch points here. So being near the front was good, but there's a long gravel road. There wasn't really anything technical, so basically just wanted to sit in on wheel here in this part. I was a little bit further away from Caleb here than I wanted to be, but get back up in a draft. And basically after this gravel road section is when I recognize, okay, after you get through that part, that's roughly when you're going to want to make sure you're still up in the front, and I am. But Nate gets a little bit decent gap here, and it was enough of a gap that I'm like, okay, well, it's more than I want it to be. I was going to say something to Caleb here to say, don't let that go and really dig. Sometimes a little bit of words of encouragement or from other riders, they'll just do it. And quite frankly, it probably would have been a good idea because Nate has a decent amount of gap on us. I break this spike here. I just, corner to corner, tape to tape kind of thing. And I was like down pedal stroke right on the spike, and it just absolutely snapped in half. So here we are again. I'm looking at Nate, and I'm like, okay, well, this gap is still there, and I wasn't exactly comfortable with it yet. But this race, this is where you can start to see some of the mud. There wasn't really much mud up until this point. The tires were fine, but it was starting to get slippery. There was a lot of rain the day before, so basically pre-ride, my tires were caked with mud. I had to shake them off, but at that point, I was like, okay, well, now it's time to really pull back Nate. I didn't want that gap to get any further out, so I passed Caleb there. And I couldn't ride this twice. I couldn't ride this in pre-ride, so I knew I was going to get off, but I do a really poor job here. I just put a little bit too much effort trying to get up the hill further when I really should have just taken that momentum and then unclipped and kept that momentum going as I remounted. You'll see I don't do a great job. So probably the worst thing I did in this entire course was that hill right there, just not remounting or dismounting earlier, keeping that momentum, and then that really cost me a lot of time. And you'll see that in a couple other laps. So this part was super slick. Nate probably had the right idea up there on the right-hand side where it's a little bit more traction. Green is grass, right? Green is go. It's the phrase, and I was just, you can see my tires are completely caked of mud at this point. So Nate's gap continues to sit out there for a bit, dangle out there. Little bit of a carrot on the stick for me, just keeping an eye on him. Now this barrier section, I've been really happy with my dismounts and remounts on this barrier section. It's just super fast, super smooth. I just come into the barrier with a lot more speed, and I wasn't really doing that in earlier races, but the last couple races I've just been like thinking, okay, well, I really need to practice on that. Here I was going to put in a dig to catch up back up to Nate right here, but I didn't. There wasn't too much of a headwind. There wasn't a headwind there, so it was okay to let him sit out there at that section. Now I think Nate slips up here, but we're going to start to see some of the effects of some of the mud here. So basically, there's a couple other time points in this race where you look and now you can see there's 2-3 guys behind us who are catching up. So it could be a little bit dangerous if we don't keep this gap going. Now this section, I also don't keep that speed going. Little better. A little bit more momentum, but then I catch up to Nate here. So this is essentially up to Nate where I need to be, but he gets back on pretty quickly. I don't get back on as quickly as maybe he does, and then the mud tractor pull section becomes a little bit more of an issue, and I think he slips up here, but he again takes the right-hand side, and I still didn't recognize that the right-hand side was the way to go. So when I get off here, yes, my tires are caked in mud, but I lost some time to Nate here, and he continues to dangle out there in front of me. So I keep on the gas, but he's still close enough that it's not concerning yet. So I decide, okay, let's just put a little extra dig right here, straight away. On the right-hand side, there was like some jumps, which was kind of cool. Just kids were just like jumping off it like crazy. Like, look at this kid. Yeah, just giving it. So yeah, put a little dig there. Takes some of that time back. But for whatever reason, this section, Nate continued to pull away. I'm pretty okay technical skills-wise, but he was still had a little bit of time on me. Again, another quick dismount, remount. again, pretty happy with how that went. Just, I think the biggest takeaway there is just really hit that with some speed and then get off with some speed. That was probably my prior issues. So been getting better at that. Now here I put it in the dig. I'm like, okay, well, last lap I didn't put in the dig to catch him right there, and now I'm going to go ahead and do that. But you can see he's about to see my shadow, and he knows I'm here. So he eases up super hardcore, which is about right to do. He's at the front of the race, why not? And I see the shadow behind me, and then I look back. I'm like, okay, well, how many? Okay, well, we got two other guys. We got three other guys, and Elias is coming up here on the right and making an attack. I was going to say something to Nate here, but Nate also looks down and sees his shadow. He puts in a dig to catch back up to Elias here, making this attack, and I just sit in, and I'm gonna go ahead and let him do that because I could have, I did see Elias coming up with that attack, and I could have been right on his wheel, but in the long run, it would have been better for me to just sit in. Nate wasn't really putting in too much attacks. He was off the front, sure, but he wasn't necessarily gassed. Now this is a good pass on this guy's end. So we are now in a group of 5, and this is where the competitive racing starts. So basically, we're gonna get to this section here, and this guy on my left, the 5th guy, he comes in here with a little bit of passing, but unfortunately that slowed me down quite a bit, and I didn't have as much speed coming into this. So yes, I hop off here. Okay, not the best, but these guys have a decent amount more time on me. And again, this hill was just killing me. I was trying to, get back up to the top here and remount pretty quickly, but the mud ended up being a factor. And now these guys have a lot more of a gap on me than where I was at the start of that hill. So from here, I was essentially thinking, well, it's a muddy race, so anything can happen. And if you look up on the front here, these guys are going to slip up. Mud's going to stop and slow them all down. And so, again, I was like seeing that, and I was like, okay, well, that's how this race is going to go. A good muddy race means that people can mess up and anything can happen. So stay on the gas and then assume that you're still in a position where, something could happen ahead of you, and if you didn't put that dig 5 minutes ago, if you didn't put that effort in a little bit ago, then you wouldn't have been where you could have been on the podium or something like that, right? So here we are, 4 guys ahead of me. I'm 5th right now. And the barriers here, I think I almost hit my bike here. I was going so fast. But again, a pretty decent remount and dismount and remount. But at this point, unfortunately, they are just a little bit too far out there dangling, and I didn't have enough gas in me to just pull it back. So I was hoping for something like this to happen. The guy in yellow, his chain fell into his spokes, and he holds up one of the riders. So like I was saying earlier, anything can happen in a muddy race, and so this guy gets held up. Now I'm competing for 4th place, and the guy behind him was held up, so there was a potential more for a podium here. But unfortunately, it just wasn't my day. So I continued to put on the gas, like I was saying, thinking, okay, well, muddy race, anything can happen, and I continued to put on the gas here, but unfortunately, it just was not enough. This is the last lap. There was not much left in me. So you can see the 1st place rider out in the distance here right there. That's Elias. He got 1st. Nate was short behind him. And then the other guy was right there, and that was 3rd place, so came in the line at 4th. So thanks for watching. Have another race tomorrow in the snow, and, subscribe, like it. Tell me what I think I should do better. Thanks.